And now WOON Radio presents The Mechanics of Business with Barry Mechanic.
Good morning. Today my guest is Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6. Rick, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Barry.
So tell us, what does Vertikal6 do?
We are an IT provider that provides outsourced IT solutions, meaning that we either fully become the IT department or partially become the IT department, depending on what kind of customer we have. And we also provide, leadership and project-based work as well.
Now, one of the things that you do differently than many of the companies that just, what I'll call just service computers. Most companies have computers, they have networks, they have no idea what they are, how to fix them. They just have some guy named Bob who comes and fixes them. But you not only provide all that, but you provide outsourcing in the sense of you'll move or help them move their applications, whether it's the software or the data, to the proverbial cloud.
Correct. And that's usually where we take over. So a lot of our customers that come to us have had some other provider or some other one person working with them to get their computers and their network running. But really, computers and technology are what make their most expensive asset, their people, more productive and make their business grow and thrive. So we help them with the technology leadership, taking care of the technology, and also being a visionary with putting them in the cloud and helping them look at their organization to say, well, this technology will really help you grow your business. Let us help you put that in there.
All right, now one other thing, just before we go, so what is the cloud? We've all heard of the cloud. I think it's one of the most brilliant marketing terms ever made. So what is the cloud?
Well, the cloud really is just, if you look at it from where it started, it was a diagram, actually an icon on a diagram where someone would draw a line into a cloud and then it would go off somewhere else. It was a network connection that went somewhere. But today the cloud is really storing your data, whether you own it, like on your own server in the cloud, or someone else is just providing it as a service like Microsoft Office 365, and you're getting your data from one centralized location anywhere, anytime, and it's also backed up and redundant, so if you have a problem with your physical facility, you're covered.
Right, that's also one of the main benefits. You talked about backup, and most businesses have, if they have their server locally, it's sitting in a closet someplace. It's rare that they have a generator. It's rare that they have sometimes even uninterruptible power supplies, so in case there's a glitch. And their backup is just right there. So if, God forbid, something happens to their facility, they're still out of business because all their data gets burned up with their servers.
Sure, and that's one of the, if you look at the statistics, if a business loses their information, 90% of the time they'll never recover. So one of the things that we do is provide backup, and there's also disaster recovery. So when something does go wrong, how do you put it all back together again? And one of the ways to do that is to take a local copy, so if you need to restore something very quickly, you can, but then also take either the data or the actual servers themselves and put them in the cloud. So if something happens where the facility can't get back online because there's a act of God or a fire, you can turn the servers on in the cloud. People can still continue to work.
Right. I mean, worst case, they could, even if you lose your office, they could connect to the cloud from home. They don't have to, it frees people up from having to be in one specific place in order to be able to connect, or to be able to connect to one certain place that's not available.
Sure, and we're becoming a much more mobile society. So if you have multiple offices, you want your data to be in one location where everyone can get there, but you also want the ability to have that information if you need it in the event of a problem.
Right, and as an old-time IT guy, backup and security and disaster recovery was always something that I had to worry about, but it was never something any of my CEOs were willing to pay for.
Well, that's the challenge, right? I mean, protecting your information is probably the most important thing that we do, because your information is the lifeblood of your business.
Right, and the nice part about when you outsource to the cloud, quote unquote, you're sitting in a data center. Your data is in a data center. Your servers are in a data center. Someone else's data center that's taking care of maintaining the data center, that's taking care of making sure there is redundant power, redundant communications into it. But you still have access to manage it if you want, or have someone like yourself manage it for you, or you can hire the service provider to manage the servers. So there's a lot of different choices as to how involved you want to be in it.
Sure. I mean, it's still the wild, wild west of the cloud. I mean, it's in the first couple of years here. So one of the things that we do is we have a data center here in Rhode Island. We also have one in Nevada. We replicate the information between the two, and we manage that. Now, we don't own the data centers. We just rent space from them, but then we protect and service our customers by putting their infrastructure in those data centers.
Right. I actually lost a job once because I was talking to the private equity guy who was funding the company, and I made the point saying, "What's the point in having my own data center? It's cheaper and more secure just to rent space in somebody else's." And he didn't like that answer.
I can see he probably didn't.
And I'm convinced I lost that job or didn't get that job. And then later on, I was talking to the then COO of the company. So this was a few years later, and I mentioned it to him. He said, "Funny, because that's exactly how we're set up now." This is,
That's awesome.
So it's something that most small businesses don't think about. They just when I was when I was here running the newspapers, we had servers and we had tape backup, and I asked the question, "What are we doing with the tapes?" And they said, "Oh, well, we put them in the vault, in this safe." We had a safe on one of the floors, and I said, "Well, is the safe fireproof?" And everyone looked at me and wasn't sure. And
We're not really
we did
sure.
some research and found out it wasn't.
Sure.
I mean, it would resist up to a certain point, but eventually, in a real fire, it would just melt.
Well, and there's tons of stories you can go over about tapes. I mean, I've been in this industry for 21 years, and I've been to customers where they're like, "Oh no, we lost our information. Can you restore it?" And the person that was running the backups never tested the tapes. Never ever put one in and said, "Hey, let's restore a file and see what happens." Then you end up going back literally months to see if you can find one that's actually good. Because just because the tape goes in at night and pops out in the morning doesn't mean it's actually doing anything.
Right, and nobody knows how to actually test it.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Someone left like a year ago, they set it all up, but the secretary still goes in and changes those tapes every day, and it's really something that's got to be managed and maintained. And at this point in the evolution of IT, unless you have a need for tape, like you're a HIPAA compliance, PCI, something like that, most of the times now it's all to disk and then to the cloud, because the tapes are, they're great for archival, but they're not the best medium or the fastest medium to store information and retrieve it quickly.
Right, and certainly, storing something to the cloud, again, I put in quotes, is again, it's a backup. It's a nice, solid, effective way to back up your data. And whether you're a business or whether you're, personal, you find a lot of people who put all their pictures up in the cloud because, they don't want to lose them and things like that. I have multiple backup hard drives and things in my house, but if my house ever burned, they'd all be gone.
Sure. Well, that's a common problem, is that people are moving their stuff to the cloud, and then it becomes, where do I move it to? Like, what's safe? Can I just throw it on Google? Can I throw it on, Microsoft's cloud? Should I get a server of my own? And there's a lot of confusion out there right now because there's just so many different options.
Right, and this is one of the things, and the reason I like having you on is it really impacts any size business. I don't care whether you're a retail operation, if you've got computers, if you've got a cash register that's tied to some sort of point of sale system.
Sure.
Where you're capturing people's information, whether it's address, whether it's name, phone number, credit card information, you have data that has to be protected.
You do, absolutely.
And and a lot of people, like I said, they just put it in. They rely on either the vendor of the system to support them, quote unquote, or Bob or somebody else, and don't really understand everything that's going on.
Unfortunately, a lot of times you just don't know what you don't know until there's a crisis, right? So that's kind of when we get called into a lot of situations. But the bottom line is, a lot of small businesses, they're focused on what they want to do, whether it's providing services to the community or manufacturing this or providing some other thing. They're focused on what they do best, not really their technology. And a lot of times we'll go into one of those clients and they're still using spreadsheets or some very primitive technology to manage it. And it's like, wait a minute. If you just took a step back and took a look at this holistically, you can do this and this and this. And compared to how much it's going to give you in productivity and grow your business, it's practically no money at all.
All right, and keep that in mind, because that's where I wanted to go at next is what are people not doing, or what are you often finding that people should be doing with computers that they're not. So why don't you stick around? You're listening to The Mechanics of Business. I'm Barry Mechanic. My guest, Rick Norberg, who is CEO of Vertikal6, an IT services company. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you should be thinking or might be thinking about doing to help automate or become more efficient using technology. So stick around. Okay, I'm back. My guest, Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6. So you started to talk about that you'll go into businesses and see that they're using spreadsheets or they're doing things that they could be doing with technology. So what are some of the things, how do you go about helping companies to become more efficient or effective?
Well, a lot of times what happens is they'll have a moment in their company's evolution where there's a technology, epiphany, where maybe that was in the mid-90s or the mid-2000s, where they started using some technology like spreadsheets or some CRM system, which is a customer relationship management. I don't want to throw too many acronyms out there in case the audience doesn't know what they mean. In our industry, there's a lot of them. And then, they just go on doing their thing. And then all of a sudden, there'll be something that comes up or some supplier or some customer that'll ask for something, and they go, well, maybe we should revisit that. And a lot of times we'll go into a client, and they haven't really done anything with their technology in 5 or 10 years. And as you know, if you look at the advances in consumer technology, like the iPhone, the Android, PCs, tablets, all of this stuff, 5 or 10 years is a long time to not look at, the changes in technology that have happened around us.
Well, it is, and I think, again, when people think of computers, basically they're thinking of word processing, email, maybe spreadsheets. And that's, unless there's some application that is very unique to their business, you'll find, and QuickBooks, I should say. Everybody knows about QuickBooks and that they should be running their company on QuickBooks, which...
To a certain point.
And then, I was working with a company and they were buying the latest version of QuickBooks, and the reality was they should have been on or should be thinking about a full-blown manufacturing system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, again... You need to understand what that is.
Well, I was just going to say that's, how do you know that? So at what point does that shift happen between either QuickBooks or, Peachtree or something like that and then a bigger accounting system? Or is it time to look at an enterprise resource planning software package or an ERP system, which if you're a manufacturer will manage your production floor, how you're doing things, your people, your accounting, your sales, your contacts, put all of that into one big system, and then sometimes it'll even be smart enough to say, you're on step 8. By the time you get to step 21, you're going to need these screws, and you don't have them, so you better order them. Like, we can go very far with what technology can do today.
And even if you're just, I'm going to go back to the basic business. If you're a small retail store, and you start thinking about, what do I really need to do this? But if you can track your customers and get a feel for the kinds of things that they're buying, how often they're buying, then you've got some ability to market to people.
Yep, and absolutely, like we said earlier, information is the most important thing besides people in small to medium businesses. And the better information that you have and the more access you have to it is what's going to make a difference. In the industry, they call it big data for SMBs. But, you start your retail establishment like your community hardware store, and they've got your old school cash register, and maybe they have a credit card machine on the side that does all this. Well, if you replace that with a modern point of sale system, or we call it POS, you can track your inventory, your credit card purchases, who bought, when they bought, why they bought, and then you've got new technology out there which actually gives you presence information. So some of the wireless technologies that we have will push data to a consumer. So let's say they're standing in the hammer or tape measure aisle, and all of a sudden you push a coupon to them that gives them 10% off their next purchase at your hardware store. If they're in the store, this is where we're going with retail technology, so you can help incent consumers to buy.
Well, that's actually where I was going. Is
your psychic here?
No, but that's and I think it speaks to the point of the benefit of trying to utilize this stuff for any kind of business. Is the key here, there's the old saying, it's cheaper to keep a customer than to get a new customer.
Sure.
But in retail, the idea is getting your customers to come back in more frequently. That's how you grow revenue. It's a lot cheaper to do that than it is to try to get new people to come in. So if you can target your existing customers, and if you realize that here's someone who hasn't been in your store in a couple of months, and send them an email or send them a coupon or send them something that says, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. here's 10% off your next purchase. We hope to see you soon.
Right.
And if that person's thinking, I haven't been there, I could use some things, that 10% coupon could be enough to push them over.
Absolutely. I mean, and you want to target market to the right consumer for you, and information is going to get you that information. That was probably redundant, but look at CVS. So when you go to CVS, they track your purchases with your extra care card. Then you get dollars back and coupons off things that are meaningful to you, and they have an excellent customer retention just because of that program, all driven by technology.
And it's something that Staples does, because I have a Staples reward card.
Same thing.
And besides recycling my ink cartridges, but based on a certain number of purchases, I'll just get a coupon that says you've earned $20 off your next purchase. I may not have been thinking of going to Staples to buy something,
Sure.
but I'm going to go use that 20%, that $20 coupon.
Absolutely.
Somehow.
And that's just the information gathering side of it. So think about businesses like furniture stores. So wouldn't it be great if your salespeople had tablets? They could walk around, and while you're looking at, let's say XYZ couch, and this one's blue, you want to look at one in brown. The sales rep can bring up that on the tablet, show it to you what it would look like, and actually complete the sale and transaction right there.
And check stock to make sure that it's available, where I've had that. I got all excited about buying something, and then we went over to ring it up. Oh, it's out of stock.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives the salesperson more enablement, and it also helps the consumer, envision what they want to envision much faster without having to wait for different things to happen.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to take our second break. You're listening to The Mechanics of Business. I'm Barry Mechanic, and my guest, Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6, who is an information systems support and provider.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the things and ways you can utilize technology to help your business. So stick around. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. You're listening to The Mechanics of Business. I'm Barry Mechanic. My guest is Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6, an IT services company.
Thank you, Barry. Glad to be
More
here.
so, and again, he's more part of it. And there's lots of guys who out there who do a good job supporting your network and fixing your PCs. And really what we're talking about here is utilizing technology and really more on the software side, things that a lot of companies just don't try to or don't really think about.
Sure, and just a lot of different ways that you can use emerging technology to further either your business or your organization in general.
So what are for companies who really don't have, and a lot of companies, and this is sort of what I see is, most smaller business and smaller can be up to, 20, 30, $40 million.
Sure.
Very often don't have what is called a chief information officer or a head of tech, an IT guy who understands business as well as IT. They typically have what I'll call a break-fix guy, someone who can support the network and support the servers, who keeps things going. He's the guy you call when your PC breaks and all. But he can't really sort of understand the business and then go out and research software or better ways to do things. And is that a
typical.
good sort of description of most companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of companies start that way, and a lot of the guys that are in this industry get in that way. But I think when you want to really provide a next level service, you've got to be able to take that technology leadership to the next level, because that's what customers really need. I mean, fixing PCs, fixing networks, yes, we do it, but that's like the bottom of the industry, right? Like, that has to work. Like, you have to come in the morning and everything has to run. The real value is in, that I have two people that work for me that are phenomenal, Trish and Meredith, and they go into customers and they take a look at what they have and say, listen, this is where you need to be in 3 years. The customer agrees, and then we'll put together a budget and a plan to take them there.
And a lot of the technology that is out there and cloud, or let's go back to the term SaaS, service as SaaS, service as
software as a
service. Okay, sorry.
There's a whole bunch of this. Software as a service, infrastructure as a service.
And so what happens with that is the company that provides and makes the software, rather than you buying the software, you're basically utilizing their systems, in essence, the cloud.
Sure.
And the reason I bring it up is everybody thinks that it's really expensive if I've got to start buying all this stuff.
Sure.
And there's lots of ways. Some of it is, it's cloud-based. Some of it is services, is SaaS, and where you're paying on a monthly basis based on the number of users. And it doesn't have to be this major investment.
No, and the industry as a whole has really shifted over the last 3 to 4 years. We actually were just at a distribution conference and we won an award for this. But, traditionally with software, you buy software, then you buy maintenance. And you buy it yearly or for 3 years. And then when the new release comes out in 5 years, you buy it again. So what we're changing to as an industry is more of software, services, everything as a utility. So when you run an ROI on buying it versus just consuming it as a service, it's almost always cheaper to consume it as a service, unless you have some unique need, like compliance or defense or HIPAA.
Right. Well, the reality is it's only become possible because high-speed internet access is now readily available.
Oh, yeah.
5 years ago, when I would go to buy internet access, it cost me $1,000 a month, and I got a T1, which is 1.5 megabits a second.
Sure.
I got 50 or 100 megabits per second coming into my house at this point.
Yep.
For $50 a month.
Yeah, and you were just the tip of the iceberg on that. I mean, when 5G comes out for cell phones, you're talking phenomenal data rates.
Right. So what I'm getting at is it has become the ability to connect to someone else and utilize their systems has become doable. And
Sure.
Because just about every business now has some form of higher speed connection
Or dual.
So where you pretty much had to buy everything before because that connection was too expensive, you needed to run it locally, you don't anymore, and the software industry has recognized that.
Software, hardware, I mean, you can rent anything these days from a lot of different providers. And it's funny if you look at the evolution because it's come full circle. So in the beginning, in the 60s, you had this mainframe and you had these dumb terminals. Then we moved from the mainframe model to distributed computing where the PCs had all the power. Then there was a box on the back end, but really it just held data. It didn't do a whole lot. And now we've kind of come full circle to powerful boxes in the cloud, powerful boxes on site. It's just interesting to see how the industry has evolved.
Oh yeah, that's usually my speed because when I started in IT, it was the mainframe and the dumb terminals, and I've seen that circle. But the key is running the right things on the right equipment at the right place in the right place.
Sure, and that's one of the things that we do for our clients is really getting the right equipment in place. Like for example, there's the PC discussion, right? So there's the Walmart discussion that comes up all the time. Like, why don't I just go to Walmart and buy a $500 PC? When you look at the person that's using that PC, which is usually whatever they might be, a $20,000 to $150,000 person, fully loaded, even more than that. Every time that boots, it's 2 minutes. Every time you switch software package, it's another 2 minutes. The most important or most expensive part of that whole deal is the person. So you want to buy better equipment so that the person is more productive because that's where it's costing you money. And that's the reframe you have to kind of go with a client because they look at it as a commodity when, there's a reason you don't use a Toyota pickup to haul boulders. Right. So
and consumer PCs are different than business PCs. There's different power supplies. There's different quality hard drives. There's a lot of things that are.
And if you're going to play Sudoku on it, it doesn't require much computing power. It's fine.
And with that, we're going to take our final break. We're talking to Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6, an information technology services provider, talking about the things you should be or could be thinking about to help make your business more effective. So stick around. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6, information services provider, both supporting hardware on site, but also helping organizations to figure out how to use technology to become more efficient, effective, and then helping to manage that. So Rick, we're just about out of time. Tell me, how can somebody get a hold of you or your company to find out more about what you do, or maybe to have you guys come in and take a look at what they're doing and see if there's a way you can help them?
Sure, you can give us a call, 401-825-4401, or check out our website. It's Vertikal, the number 6.com. Are great ways to get in touch with us.
All right. Now, Vertical, it's for those of you who we've talked about branding and things on the show, Vertikal6, you've just rebranded the company and gone from an older name to a newer name, just, because you think how's that effort going and where you at with the rebranding?
It's been fun. I mean, it's been a lot of work, trying to pick a name and then getting a website and all the different things you need to do to take into account these days before you do that. And then, of course, there's the promotion and getting it out there and all that stuff. But it's been a lot of fun and just a different energy. So it's been
all right. So again, it's Vertikal, Vertikal 6, and that's the number 6. And it's vertikal6.com.
Correct.
And what was the number again?
825-4401.
All right. So if you've got technology and you're not sure you're using it as effectively as you should be, or maybe there's something out there that can help you become more efficient, effective, and save time. Time is money. Give Rick a call or check out vertikal6.com and at least talk to them and see what they can do for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Barry.
Rick, thanks so much for being on. I appreciate it, and for explaining the cloud. Because I know most people don't know what the cloud, don't understand it.
Well, it's constantly evolving, so
well,
it's
that's
fun.
good. That's what it's all about. Okay, folks. Well, I want to, as always, thank you for listening. If there's a question you have for me, or if there's something I can do to help you to make your business more efficient and effective, please send me an email at Barry, Barry, at mechanicsofbusiness.com. And as always, I hope you listen again next week. Thanks.
You've been listening to The Mechanics of Business with Barry Mechanic. Tune in every Saturday after the 9 a.m. news for The Mechanics of Business. And if you missed any portion of today's program, catch it online at onworldwide.com on demand.